June is Audiobook Month. Join Viviana, the Enchantress of Books, and the Audiobook Lovin Series as she celebrates the authors and narrators who bring your favorite stories to life. Not only will this month be packed with exciting guest podcasts full of all things books, but stick around after each episode for some special information about this year's giveaway and more.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 18 of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with narrator Bridget Bordeaux. Welcome, Bridget. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well.
I'm so excited to talk to you again. We got the chance to meet in person at an event a few months ago, and I'm like counting down the days until I get to talk to you again. So it's been so much fun.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll start with having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating, and how you got started.
Awesome. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting. So I went to school for performance and I graduated in 2015. And then my husband and I, Jake, moved to Louisiana for him to do a master's program in acting. And we were in a show with another actor who does audiobooks in New York. And she said, hey, this is a great side hustle for actors. You guys should check it out. We got coffee with her. She kind of gave us the ins and outs and the basics of ACX and setting up a studio. Jake graduated. We moved across the country, did a few theater stuff, and he happened to win a microphone from Performance Now Audio on Twitter. And he started narrating and going for it. And I said, that's so wonderful for you. No one will want to listen to my voice. So you can do that. And I will keep doing stage acting and doing other odd jobs. And in 2019, it was like December 2018, I finally caved and said, okay, I'm just going to put my samples up on ACX and see what happens. And the next day I had an offer for like a 40-minute project that took me 2 weeks to do. But then I fell in love with it and I started doing a few more projects. And then I got my first romance offer and was like, I don't know if I want to narrate romance. I don't know if I can. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. And I did it. And then the jobs kept coming. And I eventually brought Jake over with me to do the romance audiobook stuff. And we were doing it pretty I think I did maybe 5 or 6 books that year. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I think I lost about 5 theater jobs within 2 weeks. And I said, okay, I'm going to need to pivot pretty hard, and been doing it for about 4 years. And I've only had like a 2-week lull at the very beginning where I didn't have a project. And now I have over 200 audiobooks and am booked out for over a year in advance. And it's a wild journey.
Oh my goodness. If I'm a fellow freelancer, the fact that you're booked out a year out, I'm so happy and excited for you because goodness, it's always where's the next project coming from? Even if you are booked 4 months out, you're still, weird and kind of freaking out, right? A little bit. So that's awesome.
That's kind of weird because that's so expected in the theater world where I'm doing stage acting, or I'm like, oh, I have a job for about 8 weeks. And then when's the next job? And so it's very weird having job security.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that calendar loveliness happens for you guys as narrators in, scheduling things out and ensuring that, you schedule sometimes, called a break every once in a while.
How do you spell that?
I'm going to publicly say I am so proud of you and so happy for you because you did it. You took 2 days off and you shared it with the rest of us, almost like giving us also permission to do it as well, which I appreciate. I'm like, well, as Bridget, she AKA workaholic, can take a day off here, so could I. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
I did it on Saturday.
Yeah.
It was my first planned day off where I still kind of did work. Don't tell anybody. I read a book that I was prepping, but I was like, I want to read this anyway. So
okay. I see what you did there. Whatever helps keep our mental sanity. And I know the little I have left, I need to hold on to it to dear life. So even if it's on the day off, if I'm working on a graphic that will happen to end up on my social media talking about, I don't know, books in one case or another, I'm okay with that. So Yeah, but I did want to say that that's you are a workaholic, and you have kind of shared your journey with all the stuff that you've been doing lately on social media, and you're just such a fantastic job of giving us behind the scenes stuff, recordings. You actually kind of have like a new thing going on where you're talking to the indie authors and the authors out there via your videos about the whole process of getting their titles into audio, which is great because there's a lot of fantastic information out there. But unfortunately, there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it's harder to figure out which one is accurate versus not. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and there's also some folks that are charging, I'm seeing now, for that information that's already available for free that other creators have provided for free. And so the fact that you're doing it and giving people that insight and knowledge on a platform that anyone can basically access is fantastic. What made you want to do that?
I came into the community and was met with a lot of gatekeeping, honestly, from kind of an older guard of audiobook professionals. And I didn't like that.
No one does.
I know.
It
So
sucks.
I do try to, I mean, I'm not an expert. I've only been doing this for 4 years. And so there are lots of things that I don't know. But I really recognize the artistry in authorship and being a voice actor and a narrator. And as an artist, I know how hard it is to be an artist. And I want to do what I can to support other artists, especially it seems to be in this community a lot of really, really incredible women and femme presenting people who are a part of this industry and making names for themselves and providing for their families and giving themselves artistic expression and freedom and building community. And I think that is so important. And I don't want to monetize aiding that.
So that's great. Again, like I said, a lot of this information, because there's a lot. I mean, I love the fact that I can Google the shit out of anything, but that also means that in between all these informations, there's a lot of inaccurate stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
finding someone that knows what they're doing, regardless if it's been a few years or not. I mean, a lot of people become subject matter experts in a couple of days on certain things, but a process like this where the information's out there, it kind of has upset me a little bit. And okay, I'm not gonna lie, it's fucking pissed me off that there's some people out there that are monetizing the information that is free already out there. And unfortunately, authors in their desire to get things out there available just sometimes fall into that trap. And so it's just one of those where I've been making sure that I'm resharing, reposting things like how when you share stuff, and Paige is another narrator that shares a lot of information on her socials that is just great for whether you're an author trying to get into audiobooks or you're a listener trying to get into listening to audiobooks. It's just great info and insight. So I thank you so much for doing that. It's been great to see that.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah. Why are you laughing?
I'm just trying to be helpful and honest. Like I don't feel like I'm doing anything like it's particularly special or anything. I'm just trying to be open and honest and communication. And I do want to help folks. And obviously, I charge for like my narration services. I will charge for when I do like performance coaching for other narrators. But yeah, I really encourage authors to just reach out and talk to narrators and maybe multiple narrators. I try to really embrace an idea of there's no pressure to hire me. Like I'm not going to try and like scoop you up and put you on my schedule. I just want to be there to answer questions as best as I can because there is a lot of misinformation out there and there's just a lot of information to sift through and it can be very overwhelming to sift through that, especially if you haven't done it before. So I will just encourage authors to just reach out and ask, especially going straight to most narrators are so happy to help and answer questions.
Yeah. Also, a lot of people don't know that you guys as narrators, as individual, whether you have a narration partner like you do with Jake, or if you do a book solo, you can also produce the book yourselves. And it's just sometimes we don't stop to think that the narrator is also the producer. And so they help the author with that whole entire process. So who better to ask than a narrator? Hey, what does that look like? Once I pay you for your voice and your performance, what next? It's important to do that. And yeah, I mean, I know that's why I was like, why are you laughing? It's you're such good people. And I think it's important to say thank you when people are doing good and acknowledging them and helping them out and sharing the word, the spread the word. And so I was glad that when I saw you do it, I was like, oh, look at her. I love that. Yeah,
Oh,
you knew I loved her. Besides her sassiness and her sarcasticness and also her voice, it's just fantastic. She's like, here's
well,
another reason to love me. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's like, again, it's one of those where it's appreciated. And now in the years that you've been narrating, obviously your process from the first time you ever get hired or do an audition to where you are now, when once you've been cast, that prep process, what does that look like for you now?
oh wow. I think the biggest difference is volume of projects. Where when I first started, it was I would work on one project for 2 weeks and then move on to the next project for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then move on to the next one. And if I open up my schedule here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 projects that are in some sort of process. Oh, 13. I'm so sorry. I lied. So I guess it's finding a balance of being able to produce so much pretty rapidly, I would say. I have a great team of people. I have an engineer, I have spicers, I have a PA, I have proofers, I have ARC listeners and reviewers and folks like that who all help me do all of that. So from it starting with just me doing it all by myself to having this team of incredible people that I get to work with has been kind of the biggest change. And the audiobook industry is fairly new in comparison to most industries, and it's changing all the time. So just being open and understanding that it's changing and evolving, and that my process should also be changing and evolving, and always trying to make things cleaner, more efficient, opening myself up to be able to do more narration as opposed to doing narration and then all of the production and all of the administration and the like.
Because in between all that stuff, you have to prep the book to figure out if that character has a Russian accent in chapter
Oh yeah.
44. Before you
I
get to chapter 44, rather.
I will read the book and then I have a character information sheet that I will send to the authors that has them list out the main characters that will be, where they're from, how old they are, their education level, 3 adjectives to describe them, if they have like a celebrity that has been inspired the character, and then kind of like given circumstantial information that will inform who the character is. So that's kind of the tools I use to create and generate characters. And then Jake and I, if we're doing a duel, we will discuss character voices and try to find a good match with our voices for that. If we're doing a duet, we also communicate with that. I'm also kind of the artistic director of our business. So I will usually assist in dictating how the voices sound.
We're used to either solo narration or dual narration. And with the dual being, changing POVs between usually the heroine and the hero, having that balance of making sure that you and your co-narrator have some that concept and that thoughts down, so at least there's some similarities, because otherwise it can throw a listener off. I mean, I've listened to a book where she does the accents and he does not. And I'm going, communication,
That's one of
folks.
my pet peeves as a listener as well, when there's like an obvious, like shared common name that's mispronounced between the two. So I totally understand that there are things that are going to slip through the cracks, obviously, but I try really hard to make sure that there is a unity in our shared world between Jake and I. That also helps that we've been together for 10 years and have acted together for over 10 years and know each other very well. And I haven't done too much narration with other narrators, but I've done a few, and I always want to make that a priority to be like making sure we're in the same vein and same world. And
Yeah, because it's important. It can throw a listener off completely. And of course, we'll end up in that review. So it's important to try to get it. You are human, we have it, but it's important. Now, with the kind of characters that you guys are voicing, it varies from the happy-go-lucky friend that pops into that one scene that you might give that bubbly voice to, then and all of a sudden ends up being the main character in book 5 of the series, and you're going, fuck me.
yeah.
How do you go about deciding how these characters are going to sound so things like that also doesn't happen? But you also have a huge range in your toolbox of your tones, so that's great.
Yeah, I think that is both a skill that Jake and I have that makes us very valuable, especially because we found ourselves really thriving in the why choose RH realm. And so there's multiple, especially for Jake, where he's having to voice multiple male characters, main characters. And if it's a duel, I also have to kind of slip into that as well. I'm really on the bandwagon in the narration style of making very distinct character choices for all of the characters. I, of course, am acting the intention and the like, but I also do want to give the listener as many tools as possible to understand the story. So the more that I can adapt and change my voice to help share the story and have it be character driven, that's what I'm kind of going to go for. And I kind of have a variety of vocal placements essentially that my characters all live in, and then I'll have slight variations within that. So I have kind of more of my natural voice, which is here. I can go up a little bit higher with a little bit more energy, and that's usually the more bubbly characters. I can go a little bit higher and really be very specific about using my range and kind of the pitch and flow of the range. And then I have my characters that drop down pretty low and kind of use that vocal fry. So there's just little tools that I can use where I can go, here's my mid voice, and I'm going to add a little bit of air onto my mid voice. Here's my higher voice, and I'm going to add a little bit of air onto my higher voice. And here's my lower voice, and I'm going to add a little bit of air onto my lower voice. So it's kind of figuring out which of those tools that I have in my pocket are going to best fit with the character descriptions that I've gained from reading the book, and then with working with the author and seeing how they are perceiving their characters.
The other thing that we're our suckers for is when it comes down to the audiobook community are these accents that you guys do. I think part of it is because, especially here in the States, we have one or two that we're like, ooh, but then there's all these plethoras, or it's just still accents are fun, but they're also sexy. What's your favorite accent to perform?
I like a really nice RP, that kind of posh British. It's probably where I sit the best. It's funny you mention accents. I've just gotten off of 2 weeks straight of almost exclusively narrating in about 10 different dialects, and my brain is struggling.
Yeah. To go back to your normal accent, normal voice, or just trying to keep track of everything? Because
well, it's always interesting knowing like the origins and etymology of dialect and accent. So there'll be times where I will be doing, like, I finished narrating with a Scottish dialect, and then the next book is a Southern dialect. And I have a really hard time sometimes because they do have similarities in terms of the rules of the dialect. And so if my brain has been stuck in the certain rules and oral posture, and I switch to a new one that has similar rules, it'll switch over and try to follow that. So I think I did yell at myself a bit the other day recording, and I saved it because for June's audiobook month, everyone's asking me for bloopers. But I think I'm just yelling, I'm not Scottish. I'm not Scottish. Stop. Just because I couldn't get out of it. I was supposed to be Southern, and my mouth did not want to be Southern.
does it follow you outside the booth? Like when you're supposed to be quote unquote done with recording for the day, and now you're pouring your coffee or your dinner, and all of a sudden your accent still comes out?
Yeah. One of the best practices you can do for a dialect and accent is just to speak it as much as possible. So I will carry that with me, especially if it's an accent that I'm not super comfortable with. And my brain likes to get stuck in that. And then I don't know if you saw, I tried to do an author PSA like we were talking about earlier. And I re-recorded it about 6 or 7 times because I could not get out of the Scottish dialect. And I said, you know what, fuck it. It's just gonna slip in. I want to share this information, and it's gonna be a little silly with my rolled R's and my vowels being a little weird, but here's this information.
Yeah. Well, and you're also showcasing the awesomeness that is your skill set. So it's a win-win in my case.
I'm saying it's a good Scottish dialect in that instant.
Girl, I'm trying to help you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, please see my skills. Wow, they're so impressive.
No.
I was fortunate in undergrad to have an excellent education in terms of vocal performance. That's vocal technique and health, but also a lot of that was learning how to learn how to do dialects. So not only learning how to do dialects, but learning to find one that I don't know how to do and teaching myself how to do it.
Because it's hard. I mean, I remember going to, so I tend to pick up some of the accents pretty quickly when I'm visiting places or where I'm speaking to someone that has one. And it's not meant as a mimic or anything, just that's just how my brain works. So when I go to Savannah,
Oh,
Georgia, after a few days, I'm starting with a little bit of that Southern Savannah, Georgia accent.
yeah.
But it's been like 20 plus years since I went to Boston for a week. And to this day, I still have to say the word car specifically in like I'm going to say like normal because it comes out like, hey, I'm going to be at the car. You know,
Yeah.
for some
Yeah,
reason I
your
just
brain's
kept
weird.
that word. Yeah.
Myelinated sheaths will pop up every once in a while that you're not aware of, and they can stick pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm like, of all the words, car. Okay. All right. I mean, it's not, I mean, how often do we really say that word to begin with? So maybe I'm kind of grateful at the same time, but still could have been worse. I'm gonna go to the potty. I don't know, whatever. But it's for me, it's fascinating because I'm like, I pick it once or twice, but the variety of it is, especially when there is a difference, like that Southern Triangle, Savannah, Georgia versus Atlanta and, you know, Texas. And the listeners that are from there will be like, that does not sound like an XYZ. And I'm like,
Yeah, that always cracks me up. And they're like, that's not a Southern dialect. I'm like, which one?
yeah, which one?
There's many
There
Southern dialects. So
yeah, even here in Florida, a lot of times people think they look at me like you have an accent, and I'm like, I'm sure I do. I just don't know what to tell you because I can't figure it out myself. Being bilingual, first generation American, I live in Florida. As soon as you
yeah,
get
I would say
higher,
if I listen to your dialect, I would say you have a little bit of a Southern influence, but mostly I think your influence is coming from maybe a Hispanic heritage.
yeah, it's like I said, first generation. My dad was from Cuba, my mom's from Chile, so I have
Mhm.
and we spoke English outside of the house and Spanish on the inside only. So there's certain things that I'm sure there are words that I'll say that are more like, okay, that's a little bit more from Miami versus, you know, others, you know, outside of cities. But yeah, it's,
Yeah.
but even here in Florida, the moment that you get stuff, you know, more north of Orlando, all of a sudden you're like, are you sure we're still in Florida or we're not in like another southern like state? And that's the other thing too. Like people are from Florida, like you guys are from the South. Why don't you guys have a Southern accent like Georgia does or North Carolina stuff like that? I don't know. I just
Different. You
live
have a lot
here.
of the Hispanic influence there and different colonizers came
Yeah.
through and influenced the language. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's and this is also the fact that she picked that up is how awesome she is on her skill sets. But yeah, it's I love accents and when you guys do it, it's always like, oh, that moment of like that's awesome. And I'm like, yay. And then I
Yeah, it's a
still
true blessing for us
mhm.
because we often have, yeah, you have seven guys. One of them gets a dialect, and you're like, thank you. Thank you so much.
But you know that authors really love to do that, right? They seem to put all the characters together in either a dinner party scenario or they're fighting with each other because there's some form of a mobster planning party.
Or
I
they're
don't
all
know.
fucking. There's seven of them.
Yeah. And you're going, okay, challenge accepted. Yeah. And I'm me as a listener, I'm like, ooh, how's she gonna do that? Okay, let's see. You know, kind of figuring that out, but it's been great.
Very careful.
What type of character do you like to voice?
Hmm. I really like the snarky, badass kind of lady with an attitude. um, I think I'm very gifted in understanding how comedy works, especially on stage. So I will do a lot of like farce and comedic roles is often what I'm cast in. I love the challenge of bringing the humor in an audiobook to life. And we're very lucky that we are often working with very funny authors with very funny characters. And so I kind of relish that challenge of finding the humor. I also probably am most well known for Geraldine from Zodiac Academy. And she is just an absolute gift. Not many authors say, hi, here's this wild character go as hard as you can. So that's what I like to do. Characters that are just a little bit other, different, unexpected, wild. I think my voice lives best kind of down here in this kind of character. So when I don't have to push my voice too hard, that's always nice.
Yeah, I got to see firsthand. I don't want to say putting you guys in the spot, but at the convention that we did a panel where we had the narrators read just about anything and gave them the choice of making it sound like however they wanted. And of course, it being a romance convention of sorts, a lot of them try to do sexy. And my God, did they, I say try, but they like completely nailed it. And the stuff that you were doing was a mix between the sexy and the comedic. And I'm like, where is she pulling this shit from? Because it was fantastic. And I was like, wow. And the audience loved it. And that's one of the other things I was like totally crushing on you with it. It was literally, like I said, it was putting you guys on the spot, but you guys killed it. And it was just so much fun. Yeah. What were you thinking when you're, in that scenario, when you're literally given directions to, what was one of the things that you did? Shoot, I'm throwing a blank now because it was just so good too at the same time.
I think I did a pasta recipe.
Yes, recipes were one of them.
Yeah, there were some things that were just thrown in my hand.
Yeah. But it was like as if you rehearsed it. I mean, it was like you knew exactly what you were doing. Nothing, nothing frailed you, nothing. It was just perfect. And you were just doing it. And one of the scenes was almost like an entire sex scene happening in front of us. But it was just literally directions to a recipe. And I don't think we will ever look at that recipe ever the same again.
Oh yeah. That was so fun. And I mean, that's kind of what we do. I especially for me, I mean, I read the book, but I don't do much prep beyond that. I don't really mark up the script or anything like that. So it's not necessarily a cold read, but some of the books I do a cold read on, and you just have to give the same level of performance and effort and understanding. The great thing about this industry is that it's tropey, and I don't mean that in like a negative way. There's very established kind of ideals around certain tropes, and so you know where most things are going to be heading, and always trying to be truthful about giving the authenticity of character and the storyline, but also having an understanding as the producer and not just the performer about what an audience wants to hear.
Because you get that benefit of straddling so many different roles in the audiobook that you're doing at the moment, that you kind of get all that insight into different facets of it. Yeah. Is there a genre that you have yet to narrate that you'd like to?
I haven't done many like rom-com MF. I think I could slot pretty well into there. Most of my stuff is paranormal, really dark. So I haven't really tapped into like the lighter contemporary side of things. But part of me is like, would that be boring? I don't know.
Oh, I think you'd be awesome at it just because your comedic timing is so good. And sometimes these authors put their heroines in a predicament where we're going, yeah, I'd be mortified, but that's funny if it was happening to someone else. I'd be mortified, but yeah, and your comedic timing is awesome. So I can totally see you doing romantic comedies.
I might be too close to the situations because I feel like I'm often like awkward main character energy where like crazy things happen to me. And I'm just like, wow, am I in a book right now? I can't.
Where are the cameras and who's recording?
Like, man, this is too close. Too close.
Yeah. That email would be kind of like, excuse me, ma'am. Yes, author. Were you?
How did you know?
Yeah.
How did you know?
Yeah. Goodness, yeah. There are, you were talking brief about tropes, and that right now the way that this industry is from, with the listeners, it used to be like, what's your favorite genre? And it was, paranormal, anything that's under the umbrella of romance, contemporary, Amish. I mean, it runs the gamut. Now, though, it's one of those, the question is more often asked, what's your favorite trope? And that's where we get the, cinnamon grumpy, sunshine. There's so many. I personally sometimes feel that some of these tropes can be a bit of a spoiler, like surprise baby. I'm like, I kind of wanted to know that while I was reading, damn it. True. But I get it, and it's fantastic. That we have these variety of options, and people can specifically decide that I want to do X, Y, Z, and that's great. Is there a particular type of trope that you love to narrate?
I will narrate almost anything and I will find enjoyment in almost anything. I'm also notoriously horrible at like picking favorites in anything. You could ask me what's your favorite color, and I'd be like, what's your favorite food? I don't know. I know what I don't like. I think my probably one of my favorite tropes is like the hidden girl. I've always really loved that. Ooh, I love enemies to lovers. I just did a dark friends to lovers, which I didn't know went together.
Me neither.
I was like, oh, I didn't realize that these.
I mean, usually it's the whole enemies to lovers because it's dark romance, you know? He
Yeah.
kidnaps her, he kills somebody in her life. I don't know, fill in the blank. But dark friends to lovers? Like, I
Yeah,
knew you
it's
were the mafia
Little
man.
Bird by Alicia Williams.
Little bird.
And it is dark. So
I'm gonna look that up. That one just, yeah, that's never heard of that one. Dark friends to lovers.
I
Hmm.
know it was kind of shocking. I was like, oh, I really like working with Alicia though. She always does like she always adds she takes like a genre or popular trope and like adds something to it. And so it's fun to read her stories.
Yeah, I do love it when the authors get creative and kind of mix things in together and give us a little bit of everything, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay. When you write it, I'm really good into that, that genre, that trope. It's always fun to have those authors that just doesn't matter what they write, we're just gonna love it. Those
Yeah.
automatic buys, yeah. What about different scenes, whether it's the meet cutes, that moment that they're having that banter that just is gonna lead to something steamy. What kind of scenes do you love to do?
Mm, I think like the catalyst or like the snap, the crack, the straw that breaks the camel's back kind of thing, where they just all this tension is building up, building up, building up, and then it snaps and cracks. That's always fun to perform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're not performing and working, what do you do for fun?
I really enjoy food. So Jake and I will go and try new restaurants, especially if we're traveling when we have time. I've always really, really loved reading. So when I get the opportunity to read something that's not on my work list, that's always a treat. I love like the grew up doing the epic fantasies and Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan. So being able to get back in there is always fun. I love doing crossword puzzles. I will sometimes do painting and art in that vein. I'm really, really, really lucky in my life that both kind of avenues of my careers in terms of performing on stage and doing audiobooks are things that I really, really, really love and things that are really fun for me. So those are like my hobbies and my passions and my careers.
Which is why you have trouble disconnecting and not quote unquote working.
I have so much fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say that as the saying goes, right? If it's what is it? If it's work, it's not fun kind of thing. What is that? How did that go?
Oh,
Doesn't have to be work if it's fun. Oh shoot. I speak.
something like that.
Yeah.
I'm the worst at that game, so don't ask.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean,
Someone asked me a question at Readers Take Denver about how Jake and I will rewrite the lyrics to songs and make them dirty. And they're like, show us one. And I was like, I've never even heard of music before. I've never heard a song in my life. I could not come up with a single song.
so when you're traveling in your car, just hanging out, you'll bust out with that stuff. But in the moment, yeah, it's hard. It's hard sometimes. I draw blanks. I'm like, I speak for a living. I do this for yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. What's your favorite book? I've never read anything. I've never read a book. I can't even read. I don't know.
Yep, I hear you. Yeah, like a lot of people like, oh, especially the readers when they're busting out with, oh, I love it when people ask me for recommendations. I love it too, but then it's almost like I draw a blank and then I'm now asking, now I become a detective. Do you prefer this or that? And that's kind of mentally I start remembering who my favorites are because otherwise I'm like,
I need time to formulate an answer.
Yeah. But yet again, when we just shoved you a recipe, you were able to perform that quickly. So it's funny how our brains work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll read anything and make it dirty, but don't ask me to improvise. That's not my skill.
well, you can't be great at everything, right? We were having to find something.
Really
At this
hard.
point, yeah, because at this point you're going like, everything's awesome that she does, everything's great. Where's her fault? Oh, okay, she does an improv. Fine, that would be your look. She's human, folks.
Don't ask me questions on the spot. Can't do
Yeah.
it.
You're doing great here. I mean, because I didn't give you these questions in advance, so. So one of the things that you guys do as a production company is that you have a scholarship for authors to get their titles in audio. Can you tell us a whole lot about that?
Oh, sure. Um, I love working with indie authors. I work with a variety of publishers and production companies, and they're all great people, and I love working with them as well. And a lot of the people that I'm doing the books for are indie authors, but I love working with the indie authors directly. I've made some incredible indie author friends, and being able to share that connection with an author of bringing their book baby to life is something that I find really special and really fulfilling. And so with our demand, and because of like trying to do this sustainably and being able to have a living and survive, those things that you need to do in the world. We have had to increase our rates slowly over the years. I've always told Jake that I never want to go so high that it's like very hard to find people to work with us. I want to stay into a range where indie authors feel like we're accessible, because that's where I find the most joy and passion in working with. But I also understand that our rates are high because I think we have a very quality product, and I respect the work and the training and the effort we put into things. So we have, I feel like, market value rates, but I also recognize that that's not attainable a lot for new indie authors who have never produced audio. We don't do any sort of royalty share projects at this point in our careers. And I know that's often a great jumping off point for newer authors. And I also recognize that a lot of the narrators that they may come across with doing that royalty share are newer narrators who aren't necessarily bad, but don't have any sort of like name or brand behind them. There are also some not great narrators out there who are new. And then there's a whole issue with dealing with AI and either going directly through AI companies to produce audiobooks, or people using AI to be like, hi, I'm Bridget, I'm a narrator. Here's my narration, but it's actually just an AI program. And so I wanted to create an opportunity where new authors who haven't done audio yet before have an opportunity to work with established narrators to be able to produce their first audiobook, so that they have a good, clean experience, that I am there as a resource for them to ask questions and kind of handle the production aspect of it and know that it's going to be totally fine and there's not going to be any issues, because I've done this a few times. So essentially the idea is that Jake and I work for free. We do our narration for free. We've only done 1 year of it and we're still developing. This year, we just essentially had the author that we're working with pay for a little bit of the post-production, so a royalty share plus deal, and then we will split royalties with that author. This is still a program that's in development, and there may be changes about how we handle that, but I wanted to find a way to give back to the indie author community that trusted in me when I started and have all influenced me being in the place I am and living the life that I love and having these incredible opportunities. So that's kind of a very brief, short description.
No, that I think it's important to have those conversations, because a lot of readers sometimes will complain that a cost to get the audiobook in their earbuds is expensive. But the reality of it is producing and making that book into audio is expensive. Is it hundreds of thousands of dollars? No, it's, there's different ways to do it where you're not, literally giving your firstborn or your front leg or whatever into it. But there is a lot of stuff that goes into it, from paying the art, the narrators, and that's their due. They have skill sets, they have followings, they have to get paid. But there's also the post productions and everything that goes along with it. And authors sometimes think that it's just a matter of getting it done, but I'm like, no, you have to market it. And so I understand where the royalty share is very attractive to some people when they want to do it, and it works great. But the author also has to do the work on promoting the book, not just the narrator, and then vice versa. The narrator also has to promote the book, not just the author. There's a lot of collaboration that should be happening, unfortunately does not in some cases. And that's where things get not so nice in the sense of like, where's the next audio? I'm like, I can't afford it. I'm like, well, why? I'm like, well, here's all the reasons. So having an opportunity to work with you guys to do something like this, where you're providing the guidance and effort, but you're also giving back, is fantastic. Is this information up on your website, or is it just kind of have to, like, if someone's interested in potentially applying to get in there, how does one do that?
So I don't know if it's up right now, but we essentially just had a Google application form. I didn't know how much interest it was going to receive from last year. I didn't really know kind of the scope of what was going to happen. I had an idea that I wanted to give back to the community in some way and recognize that this is how I'm going to start with it for this year, and then we'll see how it evolves and grows as we continue through. So I believe I will be opening the applications for new authors who have not produced audio in June to start doing the vetting process, because it is an application and we're looking at the sales rank and the reviews, because we want to also give the author a good experience with audio. And so if it looks like their book will at least have a decent chance of selling well, that's what we're looking at. And so we kind of vet the process and see, okay, is this actually a new author, all of that kind of things, and trying to find a good person to work with and kind of share that with. I think I'm going to be starting that in June, and it'll be an application that can be found on my Linktree. I'll post about it on social media, but of course, authors are always welcome to reach out to me via the website or via email and ask questions about it. Sorry, that's a little nebulous, but it's still trying to build up to it and figure out what it needs to be and make adjustments and changes, and before I like set anything in stone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this Audiobook Lovin Series for 9 years, and it's currently, and here's full transparency, May 29th that we're recording this, and I'm going, shit, I forgot to add XYZ to this other thing. So I think it's good that you're thinking it's and trying to figure it out, what works, what doesn't work, and also it being in the, baby stages, right? This is going to be the second time around that you do it. You're going to find kinks, none of the good kind, to get rid of. And and any glitches and stuff like that, and then also figure out better ways to do things. So it's always a process. And if there isn't an improvement, I always kind of question it. We're like, okay, where are you with this? Because if there hasn't been a better way to do something, I'm like, why aren't we thinking it that way? So the fact that you're still going through that process is great. We'll definitely be including your stuff, information as far as the links in the post later, so people will be able to find it. And I'm always sharing anyways. Anything that you do, I'm like, share. The sharing is caring.
Absolutely. And this is such a community, like it's such an incredible community. Of course, there are always like kinks, good and bad in it. Yeah, sharing information and sharing opportunities for others, I think, is a really beautiful part of being a part of this whole romance world and the bookish world.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I do love chatting with my guest is to actually play a game called Two Truths and a Lie, where I ask you to give me 3 things about yourself, and we got to figure out what's a lie. And I also know that I get this for homework, because that is definitely not one time I want to put you on a spot. Reed, are you ready to play the Two Truths and a Lie?
I am.
All right.
I'm a really bad liar, so I'm going to try and make this very sneaky.
Okay. See how she goes.
I used to be a Mormon. I was recruited for a semi-professional female tackle football team, and my tongue only has 70% of its full function.
This is where it's in the details. Because it could be that third one about your tongue having a full function, but instead of 70s, it could be totally 30%, or it can only be 80. You never know. It's just in details. So we have, you used to be a Mormon, you used to be part of a tackle football team of sorts, and you only have 70% of function on your tongue. Fun time. Damn, girl, you did good. Is the lie the tongue?
It is. I only have about 50% of full function.
No. Oh, is there a story there that you want to share or
Yeah, I have had a severe tongue tie and a upper and lower lip tie and a mild cheek tie, and it wasn't diagnosed until about a year ago.
So what's a tie when it comes down to that for those of us that may not be totally aware of that?
So the biggest effect is that it is a ligament essentially
Mhm.
that attaches the root of your tongue to the base of your jaw at the point that it's not supposed to be at. It can be a little bit further back and can be really forward. It can be pretty severe and through the teeth. There is something that is not allowing the tongue to move at its full capacity.
Hmm.
Uh, and it affected the way that I breathe. It affected the way that I speak. It affects the way that my teeth formed and my jaw and my neck and my head and my shoulders. It
Knees and
kind of
toes.
dominoes all the way down. But I
Wow.
actually saw a TikTok about someone being like, "Hi, you might be an adult with a tongue tie." And I said, "Hey, I might be an adult with a tongue tie." And there happened to be a tongue tie specialist who lives or whose office is 10 minutes away from where I live. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go in and have a check on it. And I walked in, he went, yep. He didn't even look inside my mouth. He already knew that I had a
Wow.
tongue. Um, and he said he was very impressed that I didn't have a pretty severe speech impediment. So I'm also very glad that I don't have a severe speech impediment or I wouldn't be able to do my job very well. So yeah, I had surgery. Then it was only about like 30% access to my full mobility of my tongue. And I had surgery a year ago and had all those ties cut and then went through some pretty intense physical therapy to get rid of the lisp that developed, and I still kind of have a hard time with that if I get tired. But yeah, it's much better than it was, but it's never going to be 100%, unfortunately.
Mm. Didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Things you learn while you're playing a game.
Yeah. So like I can't roll my R's. Like,
Oh, like that you can't.
uh-uh.
Oh, wow.
I use my uvula.
Mm. Oh, see, I'm fascinated by you guys in the sense of like how you use your mouth and where you put your voice. Like when you guys are talking about going at a higher octave or speaking from your diaphragm or speaking from the back versus the front of your, I'm going, yeah, I don't have no clue how to control those muscles, don't even know where to go from there. So
It's an instrument,
yes, and I don't
and
know how
there's
to
a
play
reason
it.
that people spend years and years training to
Yes,
like learn
yes.
how to use it. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like when I do Scottish, I or dialects that require that kind of rolled R, that's usually when it pops in and gives me the most pain
Oh
because I have to
no.
kind of fake it.
Yeah, I had no idea that that was a thing. Huh. Things you learn again.
Yeah.
And yeah. And are you like have you noticed a huge difference from as far as like getting better from one of those
Oh
things?
yeah. I used to
Mhm.
have pretty severe tongue tension where like I felt like the back of my throat was closing up. And I haven't experienced that since doing the surgery and the physical therapy. Every once in a while, if I try really hard, I can get like one trill doing the it's very rare, but I'm like, oh, that's improvement. I have a lot more just flexibility in terms of being able to speak. It's easier. This sounds weird, but it's easier for me to eat and swallow and breathe. Relieved a lot of like neck and shoulder tension and some posture issues. So yeah, this is a PSA. Um, have your children checked for tongue ties.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how you just don't know what you don't know, but also
Yeah.
a lot of things that kind of like when we were growing up was not even a thought. I mean, I know I have a lisp when it comes down to some words or when I'm speaking a lot or when I'm just being more when it
Mhm.
gets to that relaxed thing. And I had a narrator friend kind of tell me about like where my tongue is placed in the conversation and then the fact that that's I have a bit of an overbite and I went to the dentist and they're like yeah it's because of this. I'm like going oh great I could have had this fixed as a child lovely and so I'm like trying not to figure out different exercises and ways to purposely where to put my tongue so it doesn't have that pushing up against the teeth and then also the lists. And it's just like, wow, like, oh, goodness gracious, the amount of work that you're going, I just want to be normal. But then I look at my pug.
Well, I just learned
Because
not a pug.
no, because in the sense of like where your tongue, I mean, okay, for folks that don't know, look up a pug, okay? They have a really short snout. Their lungs are as if they were a German Shepherd size, okay? As far as the snout being long. And my pug Raven is like 13 years old, and she just constantly has her tongue out at this point. And also with the collapsed trachea that comes with age is the breathing. So I'm like, oh shit, at this rate, I'm going to be like that when I get older. Lovely. Just not as cute. Goodness.
Makes you feel better.
I
I am a vocal professional and
Yes.
only a year ago discovered that my tongue was resting in the incorrect position.
Yeah.
After an extensive vocal training and having to relearn that. But the doctor told me that a lot of the times dentists will be the one who are diagnosing a tongue tie. And in dentistry, it is essentially considered an old wives' tale that unless it's affecting how a baby is latching and eating, it doesn't affect a person. And that's not true.
No, it's not. Ugh.
So if you can, just take care of it when they're little, because then it's not fun when you're an adult.
Oh no, yeah. A lot of stuff should be taken care of when we were little, and then don't have to worry about it as an adult. Because then we realize that because it's only the pain and everything that has to go along with it when you're trying to fix something, but then the adulting that you still have to have, work. It's just even more stressful.
Or learning how to speak again after
yes
30 years and going, oh, now my tongue moves differently. That was really scary. I was actually really scared to get surgery because I was like, man, if something goes wrong, I lose my everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that is a scary thing. But I mean, even what we consider a normal routine thing of getting, a wisdom teeth out, how that affects you as a day job, right? For you, because that means, oral surgery, that, the soreness, the ouchies that come along with it, and sounding differently.
My dentist wants me to get my tonsils out, and I said, absolutely not.
Oh no! But do you get a lot of tonsil issues then?
No, they're just giant. I have giant tonsils.
Wow! Even she says that it still kind of sounds sexy.
Would that sound sexy? Tonsils are huge.
Oh goodness! When she knows that she's good at what she does, folks. Come on.
You're like, oh. I want to read a book about tonsils.
God, I'm sure there's something
a dentist
out there.
romance. Write it down, everybody. Authors, you listening? Dentist romance. That's the next hockey romance.
Oh my God, this whole thing with hockey lately. I'm like, where have you guys been? I was reading hockey romance and having it be very popular 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It goes in waves. Oh, yeah, it's
cycles, yes.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. I love when those waves come through, most because I so enjoy the creativity in terms of titles where like Omegaverse is really big, and so like putting not into everything was always really clever, and now it's like Puck is in everything. I find it so delightful.
Yeah. And then when you start Googling or doing search for it, like a Puck something, you're like, hey, there was a book titled that like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And so I love the excitement that the readers get, but sometimes they get a little, sometimes some of the listeners and the readers get a little bit like, guess what I discovered? And I'm going, no, honey, baby, you're showing your green color again as far how new you are to this thing. Because XYZ
this is
has
hockey
been
round 3, baby.
Yeah. Like, show me you're new to reading and loving books without telling me that you're new to reading and loving books. But I love it that it gets that new wave of excitement and that new wave of getting maybe new listeners to jump into it and readers at the same time. But I always kind of snicker at the end. Yeah. Like, where have you been, babe?
It's like fashion.
Yeah. Oh my God. The flares.
Those bell bottoms, baby.
Yep. Well, I remember being in my, in teens in the 90s, like, loving the bell bottoms, and my mother giving me a look like, we wore that in the 70s, right? So it happens all the time. It happens. It's great.
Yeah, the 90s coming back make me incredibly uncomfortable.
Well, aside from being called the 1900s or having an outfit that you wore as a teenager, in this case, the white t-shirt with the spaghetti strap dress over it as a Halloween costume, was not at all feeling like an attack of some sort and another. No, yes, not at all.
It's the low-rise jeans for me. They make me viscerally uncomfortable to see. I'm like fetal positioning right now. I'm so uncomfortable just thinking about them.
Oh no, yeah. Mine's was the Janko pants. For those that don't know that might be listening, those are they started off as flares, but they got to the point where the legs were so wide, but they're also
crazy wide ones.
Crazy wide ones, but they're also essentially to the floor. So if you're walking around and you got, and then it rained and you got wet pedal, it really went up your entire leg. They were just uncomfortable. And now as an adult, I'm going, thank goodness no one in my household went through that phase, because laundry would have been a horrible moment. And having to deal with all that fabric, I'm like, no, thank you, man. Mm-mm. But yeah, it was all the craze back when I was a teenager. Never once thinking about laundry.
Oh no.
Doing it, but yeah. So when I see that vampires are coming back, for an example, as they did recently, a couple of years ago, or now hockey, I'm like, great, we're back to pick up that book that I loved about hockey a couple of years ago and revisit it, and then find new authors that are doing it and seeing how they're doing it differently.
I'm doing a vampire romance right now, and I was like, oh, I forgot why people like this so much. This is great.
Yeah. My question now becomes, what are you going to shift next? Because again, as a reader, it was always like, for when it came down to shifters, traditionally back in the day, it was like just wolf shifters. And then we would have sometimes maybe dragon shifters, thanks to Donna Grant, which I love her books. And then now it becomes like, what haven't you shifted yet? Because there was a squirrel, folks. Someone wrote a shifter squirrel. So I'm like, great. Like, what's next? Yeah. So I was like, that becomes a fun adventurous part, like what that's all fun.
Jake and I had this idea for a like a bull shifter.
Boy.
And in the same harem, there's a walrus shifter. And there's a whole subplot of being like, no, you're my brother of the land and you're my brother of the sea, because like a walrus is essentially just a sea cow, and a bull is a land walrus, and so kind of finding that community and found family in each other,
which means there's going to be lots of bickering.
Gotta have bickering first. They don't understand what it's like to not be in the sea. You don't understand what it's like to be on land.
Yeah, and mine's better than yours. Because of course, siblings, why not? Yeah, I want to let me know when that one comes out.
Keep trying to get one of our authors, Britt Andrews, to write it. We have, his name would be Bo Vines, and then Walrus Russell. We've done like samples for Britt about like what the dialects would sound like, and I don't know why she hasn't picked it up yet.
Man, well, I'm sure maybe she doesn't soon. Someone else might, right? At this point, that listen to this episode.
If anyone else wants to take it, it's essentially free, because Britt won't take it.
Or Britt jump on it before someone else does. Be the first. I
mean, I'm just a gold mine here. Dentist romance, bull and walrus shifters. You're welcome, everyone.
Well, with all these creativeness coming out of you and working with words all day long, what's your favorite word? Not your favorite curse word, because that's the second part of the start of this question.
Favorite word? That's hard. Again,
that's what she said.
Immediately as all the ones I don't like are the ones that pop in right. I'm like, well, this is the game I'm bad at. I like remarkable. That's what to say. Confirm. Heaving.
That's a lot.
Delicious. Yeah, as long as I don't have to say nuclear.
I even felt the uncomfortableness that you just by saying that word. I even felt
it's really hard for my tongue to move. It's funny going like, man, why do I have such a hard time doing this? or saying these words or doing this. And I'm like, oh, it's because your tongue is deformed. I'm so sorry. You can't do it. So like circular is a lot of tongue movement. Nuclear is a lot of tongue movement. So I have to really concentrate on moving my tongue in the right ways because it won't do it naturally.
Things we don't stop to
It
think
was like
about when we're talking.
nuclear.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So what about your favorite curse word?
Bitch.
That one has
I'm
not
also
been
really into
used.
saying Jesus Christ, but with a dialect. That's my favorite curse word in real life. Jesus Christ.
With an accent and
Oh my.
everything, huh?
Yep. Gotta have it.
Yeah. Well,
That
just sound a little
class.
bit. Yeah, it sounds gives a little bit more emphasis on it for sure. But bitch, yeah. That's not one that's usually said, but I love that could be used in different formats too. So it's great.
So there's like a nice little buildup because it's a plosive. So it's like bit. And so that comes out. And then the
hmm
ch, you can extend it or make it really short.
hmm
Bitch. I love consonants. They're way
hmm
more fun.
Yeah. And when they do it the right way, yeah, and that emphasis is great. And it can mean so many different things. I know a lot of people times like they like fuck because it could be used in different ways, but even bitch can be like you're, from the good to the bad. Like like when I'm talking to my best friend, when I go, bitch, she's like, oh, tell me what. Something's good's about to
Yeah.
happen. You're like, bitch.
Fuck is fun. It's just a very simple word. So that's why it's so fun to say. But like bitch is just a little bit more. It's like chewy. You gotta chew on it a little bit. Bitch.
Yeah.
Bitch. Just sound bites of me saying bitch with different inflections. That's the whole podcast.
Yeah. Oh, it could be someone's ringtone. Bitch. Bitch.
Answer your phone, bitch. Jesus Christ.
In the combo.
That's probably what I say the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably fuck and Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we know. We're gonna see, like when we hang out, see how many times, take a drink every time she says one of the two. Speaking into a drinking game, folks, at the next, book convention, yeah, have a fun game ready for you.
I'm ready.
Perfect. All right, okay. So before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you that you can share?
I mean, how much do you want to know?
Well, I know you have a
Because
plethora.
I have like 13 working on now and like 9 scheduled for the next month. And what is most interesting
Hmm.
to you?
Hey, I'm the girl that is fair game as far as, you tell me what you want to tell me and what you can tell me. Because I know sometimes you guys are hush hushed about, the authors, like we can't say anything, or the person doing the marketing for that author is like, okay, we have a plan. So whatever you want to tell
Yeah,
us.
most of the ones that I can't do are usually just when I'm working with a production company,
Mm-hmm.
or a publisher. That's usually when don't say things. The Progeny by Rebecca Wraith, who is the one that we're doing the scholarship program with. I just got the author, her pickups from her review of the book back this morning. And so that should be available very soon. And we'll see how that goes. And then we'll be doing the next book in the series in July. We are currently working on a duet multicast for Britt Andrews' new release, Hunt So Wicked. That one has Scandinavian, Scottish, Irish, Cockney, RP, Nigerian, Swedish, German, a lot of dialects in that one. But we're working with a fellow actor friend whose pseudo is James Amherst. So that's been a fun project to collaborate on. And yeah, doing some quite a few duets, a lot of duels this month, which hasn't been the kind of standard for a few months now. And then next month we'll also be doing the Beyond the Veil, which is Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti's 0.5, I think, in the Zodiac Academy series. And then the Princes of Forsyth University for Angel Lawson and Samantha Rue. Those are probably the ones that people have the finger on the pulse of.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Lots of goodies.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Lots of dark, spooky stuff.
No, yeah, and you're really good at sharing on your socials what you're currently working on, whether it's via a live read or just telling us what's going on and then what's coming up next, and also when things come out, which is one of the things I love about you guys, is giving us that info.
We try our best. Sometimes I'm sure you know, as narrators, we are not the first ones who know when books are released. We're not told. So it's like, hey, your book's out. Oh, thanks. I guess I'll tell everybody else because I had no idea. So we try to get it out there, and yeah, lots of them. There's always happening.
Yeah. It's always great too, because when I find out that a book that I love is coming to audio, and then the narrator's also been announced and stuff, I'll put on my calendar to kind of keep an eye out for it, and then I'll get these reminders, like almost like a Christmas gift where you purchase it in the summer and then you don't know, or you ordered it and then you get an Amazon delivery or gift delivery. You're like, I have no idea what this is, and it's like Christmas all over again, and you're going, oh, that's right, that book's coming out. And so it's always fun when you get those emails like, it's now available. I'm like, yeah. Run to the
we have some incredible and ravenous fans, and so I try to keep up for them. But sometimes it's like, hey, did you know? I'm like, no, thank you for I didn't. Thank you. I had no idea that it was out.
Look, why we call it a community. You tell me, I tell you.
Nobody tells me. Usually it's a fan being like, hey, it's released. Thank you so much. I will tell my PA to make a post about it.
Yeah. Saved Google searches are always a fun thing for me sometimes. I'm like, well, that's right. It's been a while. But I'm like, yeah, they have a release. Awesome. Or a genre too that I'm sometimes like, we don't have enough of, but then it gets tagged as a genre, and like I get it. The alerts. I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the good things about social media, right, is the stuff that comes out of it is the community of it, and getting to get more books and hanging out with you guys on different platforms and all that fun stuff.
I love it. It's very overwhelming sometimes, but I love interacting with the readers and the authors. It's so much fun.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. I mean, we love it when you guys interact with us as readers and listeners. Kind of get a little bit of an extra layer there, but also as fans, it turns out that we'll follow you guys, and if you're narrating XYZ genre that we would have never picked up on our own, but because you guys are narrating it, we'll give it a try. So it's always a win-win, I say, when it comes down to those kind of relationships that we all win. So
it's wild.
Mm-hmm, it is. I'm like, crap, I would have never picked up that XYZ novel, but Bridget's narrating it, so I'm gonna give it a go. And yeah. And then you make it awesome, and then we try someone else and you're not narrating, and we're like, damn it, Bridget, it's all your fault.
That is like such an incredible compliment, and I always feel so bad when people tell me that, because I can only do so much, and they're like, I will only listen to you. I'm like, but other people are really good, so I can only do so many books.
Yeah, that's true. But that's also where you guys do a fantastic job of promoting your peers and sharing snippets and stuff like that. That's also how we discover new narrators, is when you guys are interacting with each other or go to a conference and you're hanging out. We're like, oh, okay, you guys, I didn't think about that, and kind of discover someone new. Or a fan of yours says, hey, yeah, I love it. And someone else took over and then I listened to them and they were awesome too. So lots of different ways to discover new folks. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being part of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It's been so much fun. And everyone, thank you again for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed this interview as well as the series. Make sure to follow Bridget on her social media accounts. We're going to be including all those lists, so you guys don't have to go hunting for them, and you will find them over at the Audiobook Lovin Series landing page at Viviana Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listening.
A special thank you to authors DJ Krimmer, Tana Stone, Landon Beach, PJ Fiala, and all of our sponsors of the Audiobook Lovin 2023 series.
Visit today's episode post to listen to sound clips of some of the books we discussed and enter the month-long giveaway. If you enjoyed the Audiobook Lovin podcast series and you want more, join the Audiobook Lovin podcast Patreon for early access to podcasts, exclusive content like the Would You Rather game and dinner party guests, and additional incentives such as bloopers, graphics, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookluvin. Thank you for joining Viviana and her guests for this podcast, and we hope you tune in again as we continue to celebrate Audiobook Month. The Audiobook Lovin Series is hosted by Viviana, the Enchantress of Books. Please make sure to visit the main page linked within the post to learn more about the entire Audiobook Lovin Series and the enchanting author and narrator guests who have joined us over the years. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you listened, and please follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, the Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you have enjoyed this program.